And anyway, I actually don't know what episode this is, but Brie, welcome to my first live recording.
Oh, is this your first?
Yes.
Popping your cherry.
Of the Her Advantage podcast.
Popped your cherry.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little flat today, but we work through.
Do you know, it's an interesting topic. I really think that, and you and I have this discussion quite often, that, you know, when you're aware of your emotional needs and what your output can be at certain times, to really be able to prioritize what you need to do, but also what your body needs. And there's like, we're ambitious women. And I'm not just saying that as a label, like you and I, we're here chatting about it, have things that we want to achieve in this lifetime. And we've gotten real crystal clear on what those things are. And so it's a real art to be able to find where that balance is. So how do you, like, you're here today, you know you're low, you know that maybe if we weren't going to run this event, you would have rescheduled. How do you know where your line is?
I actually laughed because I'm due for my period, so I'm tired. I woke up feeling like, you know that feeling when you're like, oh, I feel like crying. About what? And I was like watching a bit of TV in the background this morning as I was getting ready, and I was like, why am I crying over like dumb shit on the news?
Old lady helps ducks cross the road.
Legit. And so it kind of made me laugh that, like, of all days, today when you and I are about to record a podcast about like women recognizing their needs and all of those kind of things. And I think it's this kind of like, I mean, this is what I've caught for myself over the years. There's this unspoken pressure on women to show up in a particular way. And there was a time for me, especially having done a lot of podcasts and a lot of speaking engagements and those sorts of things, where it's like, oh, I need to be high energy and I need to be on and it needs to look this way. But that's, I mean, as women, we're like that maybe like 2 weeks out of every month. And I don't desire to have a business that's only functioning 2 weeks out of every month. So I think for me, it's, and as you said, there's a line where it's like, no, I'm actually in pain, or, you know, like I'm so low that I'm just not functioning. But more than anything, it's actually been about me giving myself permission to show up however is required for me to show up that day. So sometimes a little bit softer, sometimes a little bit more quietly spoken, sometimes my words aren't working that well and I'm a little less fluent, and letting that be perfect too. You know, it's actually about being in the aliveness of whatever's real for me in that moment, which I think is very feminine. You know, that's how we differ from the masculine, because masculine is so fixed.
It's funny. I mean, you guys listening weren't privy to this, but Brie and I just had an hour of business planning, and both of us, we would say something and we would be like, this isn't the right word, but it's similar. And we would say a big sentence and you knew that the word was wrong, but we're like, we're just going to roll with it. We knew what we meant. It's totally fine. And here we are running an event with the Radiance Symposium, 2 really big words, like strong. But it's interesting because I think you and I also identified this week that a common thing that our community say is, it's fine, we're just going to push through.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's push through is such a masculine, you know, like just, and this is what gets me, right? Because I mean, you and I chat about this all the time. We live in a society that really encourages like a masculine way of doing things. And as women, we're not meant to push through. We have the capacity to push through, but it's not, like, men are actually driven by an entirely different hormonal profile. So they get a sense of confidence and achievement, and they feel better when they conquer challenge. And of course, women have that, but not to the same degree. So when we're consistently trying to push through, it actually burns us out. We're more like, I would say, the analogy I kind of use is like water against rocks.
Yep.
You know, it's not pushing through, it's not by force, it's just our nature to, you know, like gently and slowly
Create the path.
Yeah. And so, you know, I mean, it sounds so wishy-washy and so cliche, but I talk about as women, like it's our radiance. We magnetize stuff to us.
Yes.
And part of the radiance of women is actually, I believe it comes from tapping into and owning all sides of the feminine.
Yeah.
So owning the soft, bubbly, playful, bright, you know, aspect of the feminine, which is probably more so around like ovulation. Mm-hmm. I literally, for a moment, I was like, oh no, my brain's just forgotten the word. Oh God. And I grabbed it at the last moment there. But, you know, and then it's more of like the dark feminine and other times, but it's like, I think the dark, wild feminine is sometimes a little bit more, I guess, cast out in society.
Yeah.
But when we own it, all of them are radiant in different ways, but, you know, they're all radiant.
Do you know what's interesting when I reflect on what you're talking about, that push through and that sense of achievement? I know that when I have pushed through or done things that I'm like set out to prove to myself, it's not a good feeling at the other end. And what I mean by that is it's that sense of, I told you so, I told you I could do it.
Yes, it's
as opposed to a celebration of a creation.
Yeah. And
like true success or true what's my word? Where's the Rolodex? Or true, I think celebration is really what I'm looking at, that sense of completion of a task when you look at it and you go, oh my God, I created that. You know, it's like, no, that's done. What's the next thing to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I use the analogy a lot when it comes to women of like childbirth, right? Like we have a tremendous capacity to go through pain in order to birth something into the world.
Yeah.
But it's so different from men pushing through.
Yeah.
You know, like I think of like a woman birthing a child, versus like a man going to war. Similar energies, like that kind of fight, grit, you know, but very different at the same time. And so I think it's more as women, like we do have that capacity, but we're not giving birth every day. You know, like if we had to give birth every day, like, you know, and so it's we have that in us.
You'd be right, love. Just push through. Imagine though if you said that in childbirth. Like that's such a good example. You've got someone there doing their thing, and imagine if the midwife or the partner came in and said, "You're good, keep going."
Well, you know what the sad thing is though? I'm sure it happens.
True.
I'm sure it happens. But you know, it's we have the capacity to do those hard things, but it's a different energy. The feminine push through is different from the energy of the masculine push through, and it's not meant to be our default.
No.
Struggle and like sheer will is not meant to be our default. And you know, even I mean there's a natural instinct to childbirth of like we're bringing something through. It's not willpower. It's like it's nature.
Yeah.
You know, it's that like instinctual thing that we tap into, the wild woman that we tap into, versus, you know, men going to war. That's more willpower. That's more like, you know, assert yourself,
stand your ground, move forward.
So it's different. Yeah.
Now you and I had a pretty epic conversation this week around discovering almost what drives that, right? Do you want to talk into that?
Yeah, where do you want me to start?
Really, it's funny because I hate using this word because it's only understood by people who like, if we talk about values, if we walked out on the street and started talking about values, people don't know what values are. People don't, or they think it's like loyalty, friendship, communication. I'm just looking for someone who's really loyal.
Yeah.
Can't take myself seriously. I'm like cringing on the inside. When we talk about values and being able to understand your values as a human being, we're able to communicate our needs more readily. But there's this, and I'm stealing this word that you just used before, transition period, right? Where you've realized that you're in burnout, you've realized that you are constantly looking for accountability, you're constantly looking for reasons why you can't keep doing things, you have no consistency in the things that you say that you care about. Why is that?
Well, yeah, I mean, if we break down what we're actually talking about when we say values, my way of explaining it is, and people still get stuck on this, so I'll do the best I can at explaining it in really like layman's terms, but it's like, it's the unconscious hierarchy through which you prioritize your life. And so, you know, like people, as you've said, people often come back with like, oh, I value love, like my top value is loyalty, but it's loyal to what? Right? Like I'm undeniably loyal to my business. Nothing can have me be disloyal to my business because my business is one of my top values. I'm loyal to growth because growth is deeply important to me. I'm not loyal to my golfing career. I don't give a fuck about golf. You know, like, so it's
She's just sour that she got a really bad swing.
who knows? I might.
You might be fucking great.
So it's more so about like what drives us in life, like what's it, and it's so deeply. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this, but it's what connects us to our vision, our purpose, like the things that we can't not do in life, points to our values. And I think a lot of the time, and I'm sure you probably get this as well, the response to that is like, well, I don't know what I want to do. But that's only ever a sign that we've injected someone else's values over our own, right? So for so many years, like I doubted the work that I wanted to do in the world. Now on reflection, I can see that it was simply because I had well-intentioned family members who were like, no, like this is...
Go get a real job.
Yeah, get a real job, legit. Like, you know, so it was my loyalty to my mum, my loyalty to my dad, my loyalty to my brother, who had those kind of values of like, go get a...
traditional values.
More traditional. That whole kind of narrative of like, go get a real stable job.
Safety.
Yeah, that's, you know, in something that's not going to... recession-proof, you know, like something like a doctor or...
Out of curiosity, what was your profession? What was the profession that they were encouraging or you had started?
Well, I mean, pretty much I've always done this. Yeah, so okay. I dabbled in hospitality.
You were tuned in pretty early on.
Yeah.
That you weren't made for...
Yeah. So I dabbled in hospitality. I dabbled in digital design. I dabbled in hairdressing. And that was literally, all of it was just I need to find a something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was very much to please, again, my well-intentioned mum who wanted me to find my career, and I already knew what it was, and it just didn't look like going to get a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
But, you know, for so long I questioned what I wanted to do because I was trying to live the life that someone else was telling me I needed to live. As soon as I owned the fact that, like, these are my values, they're different to most of society's, I was like, no, I'm so clear on my purpose. I'm so clear on my mission. I'm so clear on my values. Nothing's going to pull me off track of that. And no one has to keep me accountable for those things. You know, no one has to, I don't need someone outside of me to prompt me and check in, have you done this thing?
Yeah.
Because I can't not.
Yeah.
Like I wake up in the morning and it's the first thing that I think about.
Yeah.
I lost track of your original question.
No, I think you were right. I think you're right. But what came up for me there, because it's still something that it's the same for me. It's my mum's voice. Mum, if you're listening to this, I love you. Like Bree said, and you know, anyone who's listening to this, our parents just wants, there's our language flip again, want what's best for us. And so, yeah, they're setting us up for what they think is safety.
Yeah.
But when you start to realize that that is the case, and you do have these things inside you, you're just not sure if they are going to be supported or encouraged, or even recognized by someone else. It's a really hard place to be, because you think if you start, so what I wanted to say was the common question that I get, or the common comment that I get when we talk about values and we teach values is, oh, I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to like that. So the women have known and recognized that they have this thing inside them, that the thing that they love, but it's like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
And so then there's these peeling of the layers of going, fuck, who am I going to let down if I actually speak about what I want to speak about? Who's going to cut me off? So it's almost that fear of abandonment or rejection.
Yeah.
Because we want to be safe. We want to be loved.
Totally.
We want to be in a community.
Yeah.
If your best friend were to call you, and I'm talking to anyone listening to this, if your best friend were to call you and you ask them, you know, what are the things that I'm most passionate about in life? I can guarantee that your best friend would be able to pick your values
Totally.
before you could.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing with that though is, and this is, it's almost counterintuitive, but once you're living it, it's like, it's the most, to me, the most common sense thing.
Yeah.
When we are living our values, it actually sets us up to be the most creative, resourceful, committed, lit up, fulfilled, radiant, that we can be.
Yeah.
You know, like it's one of them things, when something's meaningful to you, you will go to the ends of the earth to live it.
Yeah.
Right? Versus when you're trying to live someone else's values, like, you're not lit up, you're shut down, you're avoiding it, you're anxious about it, you're potentially a bit depressed about it, you're questioning everything, there's uncertainty, it shuts down your creativity, you're in survival.
A big question that I know, or a big like thought that I had when I was going through burnout / depression, what do I have to be depressed about? I have a good job, I have a good house, I have good friends, like what the fuck do I have to be depressed about? And I couldn't get happy.
Yeah.
Pretty bloody big sign that you're not.
Yeah, pretty epic feedback mechanism to let you know you're not living congruently.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the thing, like, excuse me, for me, my challenge was always, you know, when I was younger, and like I said, like, my well-intentioned parents who were just encouraging me to live according to their values, because like you said, that's their lens of the world and what's safe and what's, you know, so on. But they were really encouraging me to get a real job because that meant money, right? And that meant security and safety. And for me, I know that I've always valued growth and adventure and travel and connection over things like money.
Yeah.
And so it took a mammoth amount of trust and resilience to choose my values over more of those kind of like financial, you know, all of those sorts of things. But what I've come to realize, and it's been this really kind of interesting, almost, I don't know how to word it, but it's been interesting.
Cycle?
Yeah, I suppose. It's been interesting to see what's played out, because as I've gotten more and more committed and certain of my values, it's actually had me link back into finances and stability and security and all of those sorts of things.
I was just going to say to you, you know, it's interesting because you have essentially said, Mum and Dad, I love you, but that's not what I want to do. I'm going to keep on my path.
Yeah.
What's your relationship? You know, and so like I said, we have these things come up that, you know, fear of rejection, fear of isolation, fear of not being understood, all these things. What's your relationship like with your parents now, Brie?
Phenomenal.
Right?
Phenomenal.
Like at the end of the day, our parents and the people that love us just want us to be happy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean, it's this thing where, I mean, even like at the moment, it's like I said, because with my values, I've got to the point where I'm like, right, I've grown my values as much as I can. based on how I've been living. What's required of me now to live them at a deeper level is actually integrating things like finances and stability and security. And so I'm now learning about all of that stuff, but I'm having so much fun with it.
Yeah.
Versus when I did it because I thought I had to be successful. Now I'm actually hungry for it.
Yeah.
Like, ask anyone who knows my behind the scenes at the moment. I'm like head in finance books.
Yeah.
I've got I don't listen to podcasts usually, but I've got headphones on listening to financial podcasts. Any words that I don't understand, I'm like, what is compound interest? And I'm like hungry. I overheard my dad having a conversation the other day around finances, and I was like glued into the conversation, just wanting to collect information. And this is something that like I'm loving doing and I'm fulfilled by because it's of value to my values.
Yeah.
But to kind of answer your question, I'm now at this really cool point where I can sit there and actually say, hey, Dad, like, tell me about some of your decisions in investing. Like, how did you, set up your finances? And like, we're having these cool conversations now about the stuff that he always wanted me to be interested in. But from a place of now, I'm actually genuinely interested because it's of value to my values, not because I think that's who I have to be.
Yeah.
And it took me just owning who the fuck I am and what I actually want from my life, rather than me trying to force myself into this box where, I mean, you can feel it when you're trying to have a conversation with someone about something that you're passionate about, but they're not passionate about. You can feel that they're like, and like, it's just not a fun place.
No.
It's not a fun dynamic to be in. And so, it's,
you can also feel, and I'm sure you've all had conversations with people like this, and it's why I think some people don't like socializing or going to events, because you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to have these really surface level conversations, and people are either mirroring back to you or they're uncertain in their own values. So you talk about things that like they don't mean anything to the person. They don't mean anything to you. So there's like an energetic mismatch, and you're like, thanks for having me. Bye. Like us right now, we're in this conversation, we're energetically connected, we're engaging and not talking about, no offense, if we were to talk about the stock market, I'd be like, I have no fucking idea. And I would sit here and entertain you and be like, okay. And I'm like, I'm way out of my head. And I'd be pulling back and I'd be shrinking because it's not in my values.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? Like, I think I was telling you when we caught up the other day for lunch. I went to a dinner when I was in the Gold Coast about a month or so ago with a group of entrepreneurs. And these are entrepreneurs who are like fucking passionate about what they do. And it was the coolest thing. Like, I had this moment where, because, like, people talk about small talk, like, oh, I don't want to talk about work.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about, ask me a better question than, what do you do for work? Everyone on this table, it was like, and what do you do? And I was like, let me tell you, and it was like, it was just cool because everyone was.
Do you know what I just imagined? You like clearing the table and you're like, right, so we start here, and if you've got like the salt shaker and then like the napkin comes in.
It was like that.
Right?
And it was like, it was so fucking cool to just, and everyone's ripping out their phones like, this is a business Instagram, and like, oh, can I follow it? And, like, and what's your vision for that? And like, the guys at this dinner knew that I was about to co-facilitate an event on the weekend, and they were like, so how are you feeling about it? Like, tell me everything, and it was like, I swear we were the most fucking passionate, loud, boisterous, obnoxious, annoying table at this whole venue, but everyone was like genuinely fucking excited to get to know each other and to talk about work because we're all living in alignment with our values. And even, like, to go beyond that, like, I'm now at a point with each of those people where, because I got to know what they were passionate about, I'm like, okay, epic. If I want help specifically with the stock market, I just met a bunch of dudes who are really intelligent in crypto and in stock and investing. They're the people I'm going to hit up. and more specifically because I know they're passionate about it. I know that they're not doing it because that's a means to an end. It's a way to pay their bills. I know they're doing it because they genuinely froth it. And so if I go to them for support, they're gonna want to help me because it juices them up.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you know what's interesting? And what I just heard in that is like, I think in business specifically, they talk about having your elevator pitch, or like the thing that you don't have to have a whole conversation explaining what you do. You can just give the one-liner. And here you are sitting at a table, and okay, you had a dinner with these people, but you probably didn't know these people outside that, right?
Hardly.
You knew of them,
Yeah.
you knew the connections, but you didn't really know them. All of a sudden, you've had a dinner with them, you've had this really exciting, lively conversation, and like you've said, you've already just made a like network connection. You're like, you know what? If I needed to go and speak to someone about this, that's the person I would go and see. You would also refer to them. You would also speak highly in conversation about them. And I think that's also something that Radiance brings, and alignment to your values brings, is that you're the person, women inherently want to be liked. They want to feel connected to other people. They want to be of service to other people.
Yes.
And again, when you can speak to who you are and what it is that you provide, all of a sudden you are going to have people coming to you, be like, you need to go and speak to Brie. She's like the person for nervous system work.
Yeah, totally.
Without you having to, well, obviously you have to work hard to do this, but like without having to like leave your business cards everywhere, put posters up, constantly be front of people's minds.
Yeah.
Your radiance, your energy is already going to be doing that for you.
Yeah. And there is elements of hard work, but it's hard work from a place of like, I love doing this. Like it's reveling in the hard work.
Yeah.
It's the difference between doing it because you have to, doing it because you should, doing it because you need to survive, you need to pay your bills. Like should, need, have to, like, oh, it's so dense.
Yeah.
Versus like want to, love to, couldn't not, like inspired to. That's the difference. And so
fucking hard work being exhausted every day.
Yeah.
I mean, not feeling connected to the people in your life.
Yeah. I'll be the first to say that running my business for the last decade plus has been hard work, and I've loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
Even the shit that I haven't loved, I've loved because it's of service to a greater mission, you know? Yeah.
Do you know what else I heard from that? You just talking about that dinner. It's exactly what we want for the Radiance Symposium.
Yeah.
We want women to sit across from each other and say with confidence, this is who I fucking am and this is what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's not I'm a photographer, or I'm a mum, I'm a stay-at-home mum. Like, I mean, if that is who you are and that is what you do, then that is who you do it, who you are and what you do, and you say it with passion. Yeah. And there's no shame or embarrassment behind it.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing, right? Because I think there's I see this with women. There's shame on both sides. There's shame of wanting to just be a stay-at-home mum, right? And so we don't let ourselves actually own that when that is truly a value, like that's truly our values. But then on the other side, if we're a career woman, we hold shame around not being, a family woman. But the really cool thing is when you actually just fully fucking own it one way or the other, it creates space for the other. Yeah. For me, like for the longest time, I had no interest in being a family woman. I had no interest in being, like the homemaker or I didn't want kids. And so I really poured my all into being the career woman. And it's really cool because now as I'm fulfilling more and more of that, I'm noticing this other part of me coming online, which is like, ooh, like I actually just love the idea of like being a, not a stay-at-home mum. I don't think I could ever do that, but being a mum and being more of that kind of homemaker nurturer. Not at the expense of my business, but because it's opening me up. It's like
you've got the capacity to go there.
Yes. And then on the flip side of that, like I know, and I have this one incredible woman that I know in mind who she's just turned 90, and she's like, those rock star women who they're born to be mothers.
Yeah.
that's her. And she's like, she's not just a mother to her kids, she's a mother to everyone, you know, like she's the woman that like, she kind of adopts everyone, you know, like not literally, but like she brings them in, and she is a fucking boss, you know, like I watch the way she deals with other people's children, and like it's just, she just kind of takes them under her wing and like, oh no, I'll take them, you go have a rest. And it's really cool because it's, as a result of that, I've kind of watched these indirect opportunities open up career-wise for her, because she's just owned that she just loves being a mother, you know?
Yeah.
And so, and you know, in both those dynamics, like I could have played the game of like, no, I'm meant to be a mum.
Yeah.
I'm meant to be a wife. And I would have missed out on so much fulfillment, and probably landed myself in a role as a partner and a mother that potentially would have ended in divorce, and then being a single mum and then resenting it for the rest of my life, to then go and start my business with all of that kind of like resentment built up, versus just doing what I did, which was owning what I wanted.
Be a fucking business owner.
Yeah. You know, and then the flip side, like the example I used of just wanting to be a mum, like she could have chased the career woman thing, and she would have missed out on so much fulfillment. Yeah. You know? And so one actually makes way for the other.
Absolutely.
When we're living our values, we open up capacity, so everything becomes available to us.
But it's also always going to happen, right? So both those routes lead to the same thing.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
It's either the hard road or the long road, or the accurate road.
Yeah. It's like one is pushing a boulder up a hill and forcing and grinding and like
taking selfies and asking for validation along the way.
Yeah, and like sheer willpower and burnout and struggle versus like I'm trying to think of a really great analogy for this, but kind of like riding the boulder down the hill and building momentum that way.
I'm still going with the rock and water.
Yeah. It's like one feels fulfilling, one feels like it's just meant to be, you know?
The feeling that I'm that I'm experiencing at the moment is there's a lot of things in my life changing at the moment. There's a lot of things that I've asked for that are coming into play, and they're asking a lot from me. The feeling that I feel is stretched, growth, expansion, as opposed to, I was only reflecting on this the other day. I'm like, if this had happened 5 years ago, I would have felt suffocated and small, and I would have wanted to go to bed and spend the rest of my fucking life there, and been like, why is this happening to me? You know, asking all these questions. And I think that's a really important distinction too, that it's still going to feel challenging, but you feel expanded rather than suffocated.
Yeah, well, it's the difference between like intentional, inspired challenge versus like disempowering, forced upon us challenge. Yeah. You know, like, it's like I'm such a believer that the universe wants us to grow. So we either choose our own challenges that they're chosen, they're intentional. Like, oh, I want to, you know, get my work across to this country. How the fuck do we make that happen? Oh, that feels stretchy. Oh, that feels scary. Oh, that's going to require something new of me. And we use that as the initiation, like childbirth. Yeah. Right?
It's all easy after childbirth, right? The childbirth is easy fun.
But you know, it's like it's just this. It's hard, but it's natural. Yeah. Right. It's instinctual. Yeah. Versus, you know, trying to push that boulder up the hill where it's just pain. Like, and it's just I've lost my train of thought.
No, I hear you. But I think this is something that will lead into the third component of the Radiance Symposium, in that when you can identify the difference between a stretch or a challenge, or like a compounding challenge. I think I just made up a new term in the personal development world, and we're going to roll with it. finance bros, you're welcome.
I'm like, yeah. Link my true love.
Yeah. Is the action step. Like, we do not want women walking away from this event feeling overwhelmed, underwhelmed, disappointed, confused. We want them to feel certain. That was a really big component of us putting this event together, that we want them to feel certain in their next steps. What is it that I need to do if I want my business to be seen in another country? What are the things that I want to be? If I want to fulfill my life as a stay-at-home mum, what are the things that I need to do? Brie and I love the woo-woo. We love the analogies. We love the theoretical side of things, but we know more than anything that action is what's required to fulfill desired outcomes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And there's, I think, a big part of us not being able to speak to exactly what that is, because that will come to light on the night.
Yeah, well, it's almost like a I see the Radiance Symposium as almost like it's a permission piece first and foremost, but I would also say that it's kind of like a I was gonna say peeling back of an onion, but I think I'm
sick of onions.
I've got a better
so
one.
much better than that.
I see it as like is that a tulip? The little like bulb things, like, you know, when they bloom and they open up.
Yeah,
that's what I see. So it's like there's a blooming process at the symposium, and so it's exploratory in nature, in that like we're gonna, I don't want to use this word, but I can't think of anything right now, but we're gonna dig it out of you, right? Like, you're gonna get dug. And so, you know, you're gonna get dug. You're gonna get dug.
Brianna Bowley, 2025.
So it's like, we can't give the exact at the moment, because it depends who's there. Depends who's there,
and it depends your desired outcome.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if we could manifest what your desired actions are, Brie and I fucking would. That is a gift that we would want anyone to have. But it's definitely going to be situational, and that final activity is. Yeah.
And I think it speaks to like the nuance of like we could say, do it this way, but that would be me injecting my values on someone. You could say, do it that way, and it would be, it would be the same as loving parents saying, hey, go to university, or go get a diploma or whatever.
And I think for someone who's uncertain about the direction they're taking, you and I giving our advice is a great idea, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Whereas if you can learn to articulate the direction you want to go, and we can provide insight into what that might look like, you choosing your action steps and you being able to articulate your action steps and your direction is sustainable.
Yeah. And that's what we want to build, like that what's the word I'm looking for? Like that connection to self, where you don't, I mean, I still have coaches in my corner who support me with blind spots and those sorts of things, but I haven't had a coach in my corner for a long time who's been like, Brie, go do this.
No.
Because when I'm listening to that, I'm listening to something outside of myself, and I'm making someone else the authority. And so, it's more than anything, the symposium is about connecting women with their own innate knowing, rather than giving them like, hey, you need to go do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to check back in a week to find out if you did it. It's not those old accountability models, because to me, that's like, it's like mothering a child, and I'm not one to baby my clients, as you know.
No, but it's also a false sense of community too. Like, if I'm connecting to you, I'm looking, and doing this accountability, I'm looking for your approval on things. I'm looking for your validation. It's like, if you're truly aligned with the actions that you want to take, you don't need anyone's approval or validation.
Yeah.
Which is also the big thing that I want to bring in is that point of community, and we already touched on this, but I would love for the women to look each other in the eyes and be like, you know what, this is what I want and this is how I'm going to get it, and the other woman to have no fucking idea what she's talking about but feel the energy that's coming off it. That's my sadistic mind and how that works. You know?
Yeah, totally. And even like you mentioned community there, I think one of the really beautiful things about events like this, you know, in my work I talk a lot, obviously, about the nervous system.
Do you? But I've never heard you talk about the nervous system.
Well, you don't learn. But, you know, the system learns through experience.
Yeah.
And so when we want to create a new experience for ourselves, we have to actually set ourselves up to feel it in safe spaces. So the beauty of the symposium is that it's like a curated experience that has your system go, oh, this is now safe. It's now familiar. There's now certainty around it. And so radiance is something that I'll allow myself to tap into in the outside world because I haven't died from the experience. And it felt good. Yeah. So more of that.
Can we also talk to the fact that we really want to spoil the fuck out of you? Like, as women who are working really hard day in, day out, and I'm sure that you have your luxuries that you spend your money on and that you treat yourself with. Maybe it's something small like a coffee in the morning, or maybe you're really good at, you know, planning your holidays and, you know, putting in the things that are important to your receiver. Like, I don't know what the word is I'm looking like, important to you. But we recognize that women don't celebrate themselves nearly enough.
Yeah.
And we want you to rock up on the night, and we want you to fully surrender and fully not know that you are going to be 100% looked after. From the minute you arrive to the minute that you leave, you have to not make one decision, maybe how much you're going to eat, or like if you're going to be nice and share the last bite. I don't know. But we want this experience to be a truly giving and, I hate the word empowering, but I'm going to use it, empowering event. And we want you to feel nurtured and looked after, and like there's this big energetic hug around you that you know you're on the right path. Yeah. Without, I know I've just said those words, but without those words being said, like, we want to spoil the fuck out of you.
And I want to add to that, because I know there's probably quite a few listening to that going like, that sounds fucking scary.
Right?
We'll support you in relaxing into that. Because I get it. Like, I really, if someone said that to me once upon a time, I would have been like, fuck, you mean I don't have control? You mean, like, what? It would have scared the shit out of me. And thankfully, I had my own experiences of facilitators, like, tapping me into this experience, and at the time, very scary experience of actually allowing myself to receive. And so if that's there for you, if you're like, that sounds terrifying, we've got you.
Fuck off, Mel and Brie.
We'll ease you
I'm a strong, independent woman. I went on a date last night and I felt exactly that. He took me to a really beautiful restaurant. This is someone that I only met on the weekend, and he was like, let me take you to dinner. It's funny, yeah, he picked me up, and even in that there was like some odd wording, and I said to him, I'm assuming that you want to pick me up, you're not really sure about whether I want you to pick me up. And he's like, that's exactly what. I'm like, cool, you can pick me up. Anyway, but he took me to this dinner, and in my head, I don't know if you do this, but I'm like clocking the prices on things, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to split this or like whatever, we're here. And he definitely didn't come across the guy that we was going to have to split. Anyway, then I go to, what if I don't want to see him again? And he's just spent money on a dinner and time with me, and now I'm going to reject him. Like, all of these things were coming up, and I'm like, Mel, sit down and enjoy your fucking meal. Like, because you're also not present with the company in front of you then.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so where I'm going with this story is that it's learnt behavior. You learn through experience.
Oh, totally.
So I was hearing these thoughts come up, and what we would call stories. and I was able to disarm, relax, answer them without going into a freak out mode and like not being able to enjoy my night.
Yeah.
And so we're asking that of you too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the beauty of this work that we're doing through the event is that we're actually tapping you into new levels of safety with yourself. And so when you mentioned like when you've got that stuff going on, you can't be present with the person. So the really cool thing is that when you create these deeper levels of trust in yourself, it's not to say you're not going to have moments of that stuff come up, because as you've just voiced, it still pops up. But it's like you're able to actually just relax back into safety, so that then if those situations do come up, you can handle it in the moment rather than having to actually like give away the rest of your night to the what if, you know? And so it's like, yeah, you build this capacity to just like kind of like roll with the punches, and it not rob you of the enjoyment of every other moment. Yeah.
And it allows you to be celebrated. Like women, we need to learn to celebrate ourselves. We need to learn to celebrate each other, and we need to learn to fucking receive the celebration. I don't know about you, Brie, but I am fucking hot. And I feel like we should wrap this up. Are you not feeling this?
I've just like, from the event, as you know, I strained the shit out of my vocal cords. It was an event with like a lot of yelling and a lot of men in the room, and like big muscular men. So I really had to lean into my like, how big can I get as a small female in a room of men? And so I'm at that stage. I've had like a cold for the last week from from inflamed vocal cords. And I always get, at the end of a cold, I get this phase of like the scratchy throat where I'm always like, I need water with me in case I have a coughing fit.
Yeah.
And so
we're there.
I've been close a couple of times,
okay,
but hasn't happened. But that's as far as my level of discomfort. I'm not hot.
I am. So then to wrap up, Brie, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just that, you know, I think it's easy to see the Radiance Symposium and kind of think like, oh, that's just a, you know, kind of like a crafty dinner. It's a crafty networking event. I want to say that it's really intentionally curated. That like it's an experience and done with intent, that it's like a slow burn unraveling. So what you think may just be like a dinner / self-development event / networking night
/ awkward hangout
is actually going to be something that is going to crack open so many other areas of your life, because you're building range. You're building safety in places that maybe your system has told you not to touch for a while. And so it's so much more than just a dinner. It's so much more than just a self-development event. It's so much more than just a networking night. You're building community, you're building range, you're building capacity, you're building connection to yourself and other. And it will be the kind of night where you're going to still be seeing results of it 6 months down the track and beyond.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah.
These skills are lifelong.
Yeah.
We're going to crack you wide open.
We're going to get dug.
Also, I feel like I need to keep coming back to this. The food's going to be fucking epic.
Yes.
So if anything, that's what we're going for.
And the venue, the view.
We should go up there while you're here.
We should.
Yeah. You're not going away again before the event, are you? Or like you are, but like not
like
out of state.
Yeah.
I mean, you are. I'm just going to stop talking. Anyway, Brie, it's been nice chatting to you.
Likewise.